Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato. A giant in the state legislature is choosing to step down, and he's shaking his head, but he knows he is. He's State Senator Steve Oroho, the Republican leader who has served 22 years in public service and has chosen to step aside and retire. First of all, thank you for your service, Senator.
Steve, thank you so much. People that serve, in elected office, it's an honor to serve the people. People thank me all the time for my service, but Steve, I have a younger brother, Tommy, 7 combat tours, 3 Bronze Stars, the Soldier's Medal. Those veterans and stuff like this. When I say thank you for your service, it really goes for people like that. I'm in elected office, and I'm glad to serve, and it's an honor. But really, those kind of service, hours put in by those veterans and go a lot higher,
Well said, but also thank you for your service and for your brother's service. Well, let me ask you this, Senator. How much of your decision to retire and what you choose to share is yours and your family's? It's highly personal. But to what degree? And you and I have had so many conversations on the air and off. And one of the things we have in common, even if we don't see things from a policy point of view exactly the same way, it's not my job to express my opinion here, is that we believe in very civil public discourse. And to be awfully candid with you, Senator, it strikes me that your tone, your demeanor, your ability to engage with people who have different points of view in a very civil and respectful way is not the norm. How much, long-winded question, I know, how much of that has to do with you stepping down, the nasty, negative vitriol, the divisiveness, the polarizing environment in politics? Or is that just in my head, Steve?
No. It definitely, I'm sure it weighs on a lot of people. And it's difficult because, first of all, I like to consider myself a Christian. I read, and quite frankly, and look, the 2 most important business books I ever read weren't even really business. Is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie, and How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's not that, I know when I started my career early, I used to worry about everything and used to think about things that, not out of my control. So that book was very important to me. And the other one, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has been, but you know what it comes down to? Yeah, you read the Bible, you read any of the the good books and whatever. It's, treating people with respect. The golden rule. If we really followed the golden rule, and I've said this on the Senate floor, love your God and love your neighbor as yourself, we wouldn't need all these other different rules and stuff. But so, to say it would have no impact, it wouldn't be truthful. It certainly had impact because that's what raises the stress level. And Steve, I always say it's a lot harder for elected officials who do the job to get elected than it is for politicians to get elected.
A good point. And I just want to also jump into this and make it clear that over 20 members of the state legislature, members of the Senate, members of the lower house and the Assembly have chosen not to run for re-election. That's a very high percentage of the 120 members of the state legislature. I have that right, Senator?
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure how high. I know when I started in 2008, I think there were either 7 or 8, or it could have been even 9 new Republican senators at the time. And that was pretty high. Now, some had come from the legislature on the Assembly side up to the Senate.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting. These are people who've just chosen not to run. Some have running for higher office, but Steve, I'm not going to make too much of this, Senator, but it strikes me that a disproportionate number of legislators are just stepping away. But everyone has their own personal perspective. I want to ask you this. On policy, you've argued that New Jersey is not affordable. Others agree. Check out my interview with the governor, who has a different point of view about how affordable New Jersey is. What's your biggest beef with the Murphy administration on affordability in New Jersey?
Well, Steve, a lot of the things, and it's been my beef with a lot of administrations that, look, right now, we're sitting with close to $15 to $16 billion in cash. And quite frankly, I firmly believe, and I've always talked about the attraction and keeping of capital in the state of New Jersey. And quite frankly, we had the businesses that were affected. We had the schools, districts affected. why are we sitting on so much cash when out in the economy you're out helping our nonprofits and would it, quite frankly, I think done a lot better in keeping people employed and keeping businesses open. So that's obviously been lately our biggest beef.
You've also been very outspoken, Senator, on the issue of the governor's clean energy plan, the green initiative, if you will. You have a piece of legislation, the Energy Security and Affordability Act. What is it and how is it different from the governor's green energy plan?
Well, I think the governor's plan requires a lot of mandates, and I think they need to be a lot more transparent about what the true cost is. I mean, for example, going to the full electrification that the governor's plan wants by 2035 is like 5 times more expensive. They haven't really come out with all the capital costs. Others have said that the say commercial building, like hospitals, schools, and stuff that have to go to electric boilers. There's estimates that it'll cost about $2 million each building. We got about 10,000 of those buildings.
But Senator, don't we have a climate crisis, climate change crisis? Doesn't it require radical policy changes to catch up with where we are right now? Isn't that?
You know what I don't think it does? See, I don't think what their plan does is really look at the innovation and stuff. Like recently in the number of articles that came out, there's like you look at the idea of carbon capture out of the ocean so that the ocean can actually absorb more carbon. You look at the idea of the hydrogen, the fusion, and all the new things. What I disagree with is the mandate and put your eggs all in one basket that say wind and solar, and yet they're going to also allow nuclear, which is very important as well. But obviously, what about hydrogen? What about fusion? What about all the rest? And the idea would be only have 50% on non-intermittent, because look what happened during Sandy. Wind and solar. What happened during Sandy to be able to get those all those power lines back? If everybody had to plug in their cars, they wouldn't be able to get to work.
Senator, one more quick question before I let you go. One of the initiatives we have, the website will come up, Reimagine Childcare, talking about the importance of affordable, accessible, quality childcare. It's a nonpartisan issue. We're not advocating for anyone or anything, but childcare. I mean, we need to have legislators making policy that makes a difference. How important is affordable, accessible, quality childcare?
Absolutely critical, because the first, in one example is when Senator Paul Sarlo, Senator Ruiz, Senator Singleton, and I were
2 Democrats in the Senate. Go ahead.
Right. 3 Democrats in the Senate were asked by Senate President Sweeney at the time to hold these reopening the economy. What was the first one we had? First one we had was how the child care industry could reopen safely, and that's why it was so critically important. And not only, obviously, the governor has done a lot with the universal pre-K, but we also have to put in at the last budget meeting. I brought up the fact that Senator Ruiz was very supportive of
Senator Ruiz.
Yeah, Senator Ruiz supportive well. Is that we would have, we have to, make sure that the private child care industry, which is a big industry, also gets acclimated into when we're bringing more into the universal pre-K. So that it has to make sure that we keep those, those jobs in the private sector as well.
That is Senator Steve Oroho, after 22 years of public service, stepping down. Again, we do thank you for your service. We also thank you for every time you've joined us, Senator, to be engaged in a serious, substantive policy conversation about the issues that matter most in people's lives. We wish you all the best in your next chapter, and I know you'll be spending more time with your family. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Stephen. I hope in the next chapter I'll still be able to come on your show.
Always. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, Veolia, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Northward Center, IBEW Local 102, PSEG Foundation, Newark Board of Education, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, And by RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. Promotional support provided by ROINJ and by CIANJ and Commerce Magazine.
Most people don't think about where their water comes from, but we do. Veolia. More than water. Resourcing the world.